Hey everyone, thanks for joining. I'm just going to turn my camera on so you can actually see my face. There we go. You guys should be able to see me now. So I am Julian. I'm the Partner Success Manager here at Buildxact. If you've joined the webinars before, you've probably seen my face already. We've done a few of these now, and today we've brought in Lifestyle Tradie. So Andy is on as well. He should just be turned. Yeah, there we go. We've got him there.
Hey, Andy. How you doing?
So guys, today it's all about the setting up your business for maximum profit. So we've brought in Andy to talk about his experiences and some of his advice that he can give to our clients and people in our wider network. So just a little bit about Andy and Lifestyle Tradie. So Andy co-founded Lifestyle Tradie together with his wife and business partner, Angela. They operate an award-winning plumbing business as well. So after climbing out of some tough times the hard way, they've learned from some of the biggest lessons and through extensive trial and error over a period of time. And yeah, Andy and Ange have helped tons and thousands of tradies fast track their business success. So yeah, Andy's going to be speaking a little bit today. Then I'll come back in and do a little bit about some of the things that we can help with Buildxact, and then I'll take you through an actual little mini demo of the software as well. For those people that are using Buildxact at the moment, there's a fair few of you guys on the call, which there always is, so love to see you guys again. We're going to take you through a little bit some of the new things that we've got in Buildxact. Some people may have had this feature turned on over the past couple of days. If you haven't yet, you might not have seen it. So yeah, definitely stay on for that. It's just about how you break up your margin and showing that in the quote if you want to. So that's some of the things that I'm going to be talking about, and obviously Andy as well. So we'll just hop on to the next slide here, which is really kind of, I guess, more the focus of Andy's slide here. Now, just hold on to the end, because you are going to get a checklist that you can download to manage your business. There's also going to be a free book, which Andy will talk a little bit at the end as well. But it's the first time we've given away a physical. They are giving away a physical item. So definitely stay on for that. And yeah, we'll get going. But effectively, from Andy's stuff, the importance of knowing your numbers. We've talked about this, tons of times over these webinars, and why you need to know them. Also, tough times at the moment. So marketing your business to your current client base and anyone else. And then, that's when the kind of Buildxact side comes in with managing your quoting system. And then, it's not just about getting your quotes and winning the job. Once you've won the job, how are you managing it and using a system in place? So I'm going to stop sharing. Andy's going to start, and then we can start from there. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things. And again, I think most people are fairly comfortable with how webinars work. But if you're not going to be able to speak to us directly, but you can chat. So if you go into the little Zoom toolbar, sometimes it does get hidden. So just kind of have a little search around for it. It might be under your More section. You can hit the chat button. Now, at any point during the webinar, feel free to pop questions in. There will be a dedicated Q&A section at the end, but generally what we find is people wait and they don't ask the question straight away, they forget. So pop them through the presentation, and then at the end, we'll just go through every single one of them. There's always time for questions, so we're happy to help whatever they may be. And if you've just got questions that you want some advice from Andy that, as I said before, has been through some tough times and come out the other end and built a really successful business, feel free at any point in time just to jump in. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll turn my camera off so you don't have to look at my mug. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I get a little puppy barking in the background. So I think she's good at the moment, but she may start.
I thought you were going to apologize that they were going to see my mug. And I was like, lined me up.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to look at both of us for a little while. So that's their curse. All right, I'll stop sharing now so you can start, Andy. There you go, and I'll just turn my camera off as well. There we go. You should be able to start now.
Yeah, it's coming in. Yeah, hey guys, great being here here today, and thanks Julian for the introduction. So yeah, I'm going to start today really about how you need to know your numbers. Now, I assume this isn't the first time you've heard that you need to know your numbers, but with the way the economy's been going, with what's been going on around the world, it is absolutely crazy. And the one thing that I do when I talk to tradies in every trade all around Australia and also overseas is I say to them, do you know do you know your numbers? And the first thing they say to me is, yeah, I do. Or they say, well, I have Xero or a cloud accounting software, and I look at my numbers on my phone and I can do it in a moment's notice. And then I say to them, but are the numbers in there correct? Because a lot of the times us tradies haven't put the right information in, so you're not getting the right information out. And I just want to talk about what has happened with the whole COVID situation. Yes, Melbourne's been in a harder spot than most of us all around Australia. But overall, with the tradies I talk to, they are sitting pretty at the moment. They've got quite a bit of money in their back pocket. And you may be saying, well, why is this? And this really does come down to the government and some of the stimulus money that we've all been able to see. So with that stimulus money, what comes with that is obviously a lot of opportunity. The government gives that money to us. Some businesses have received up to $100,000. And at this point in time, there's a lot of tradies with a few dollars. Now, I want to ask you this. Are you looking at your numbers at the moment and thinking, wow, I'm going better than I ever have been before? Or are you looking at your numbers and thinking, geez, I'm actually struggling at the moment? And as I mentioned, Melbourne's in another different position than a lot of us here at the moment. But the thing that you've got to remember is if you do have stimulus money in your P&L, then you've got to actually be looking at that and thinking, is that the only reason my business is on top at the moment or not? And I think the big thing with knowing your numbers is a lot of tradies just have this gut instinct of, I'm doing okay, I'm doing really well. And they look at their bank accounts and they think to themselves, hang on, I've got money in my bank. I must be doing great. I should go out and start spending that money. But we all know that isn't the way that you want to do it. So it really comes down to having a look at your P&Ls, making sure you're going through that P&L every single month. Yes, it does need to be the right data, but what I've always done, and I still do today, I actually print out my P&L. Yes, I print it on the paper using a copier, but I get a ruler and I go through line by line and highlight anything that seems a bit weird or makes me understand why I am paying for that cost. And the reason why I do that, and for those of you that know me, I've got quite a few businesses at the moment. The reason why I do that is all of us just tend to spend money on things and we forget what we're using our credit card for. So it is very, very important to make sure you're on track. Part of looking at that P&L is your balance sheet. And I want to ask you this, do you ever look at your balance sheet? Now, I know a lot of the times when you look at a balance sheet, for most, it's when you're sitting down there in front of your accountant. Now, that can be a real big mistake if you're only seeing your accountant once per year. And the reason being is some people are still using their personal credit card at times and it's running through the business. And then all of a sudden, I've seen that crucial mistake of people having bills of $30,000, $50,000. They've been putting through their credit card over a year. And guess what? That is income you have received. And then you need to pay tax on that. And it certainly can hurt. So I want to ask you this. Do you have a good accountant? It is critical to have a good accountant. And if you're sitting there going, no, well, you know what? You need to find one. If you're sitting there saying, yeah, no, he's okay or she's okay, I want to ask you this. Do you actually know what is a good accountant? Some of the things that we do with Lifestyle Tradie and our members is we've got a thing called the Accountant Advantage. And that does a deep dive into what numbers you should be doing, what you should be asking your accountant, how often you should be catching up with your accountant, because everyone thinks they've got an okay accountant. But I just want to ask you a question. How did you find your accountant? Did your mum and dad put you onto the accountant? Did a family friend put you onto an accountant? Did another tradie put you onto this accountant? And did you go down a process of finding the right accountant, or you just picked one and stuck with it? Now, when numbers is one of the most important parts of any business, if you don't know your numbers and you're not making money, you don't even have a business, why do we sometimes don't do the due diligence to actually get the right accountant? So I won't dive any more about that, but I just want you to realize that knowing your numbers is so critical. So I want everyone listening today, put your hand on your heart and think, do I really know my numbers? And if the answer is yes, good on you. If the answer is I don't really, it's got to be one of those number one things you've got to get on top of, because the whole economy at the moment, we are going quite well. And when you listen to some of the economists around the country, we are going to be flying coming into Christmas as well. But guess what? Yes, JobKeeper is starting to slow down, and there's a lot of businesses that aren't going to have that security blanket anymore. So I personally think coming into 2021, I always find that February, March, April could be a time that people are starting to watch their money a little bit more, and it's very important that you do that as well. I'm going to dive down into reviewing your hourly rate, and I do know that we have a lot of builders online here today, and I just want to ask you, what do you charge per hour? And then the next question is, how did you get that hourly rate? And is it the right hourly rate? Or did you use the same hourly rate that your boss gave to you, or when you were working with him, he had $80 an hour, for example, and or that other builders and carpenters or other tradies down the road are charging this, I must charge this too. The challenge that we really have out there is business is all about making money. If you're in business, it's not about just being a business owner, having your own business to either go broke or break even, is it? It's all about how are you going to make money to sustain the life that you want. At Lifestyle Tradie here, where our business is called Lifestyle Tradie, the freedom to choose. And the reason for that is so you can choose what you want out of life. Now, if you're not charging enough money, you're not making enough percentage of profit, then how are you going to live the life of your dreams? And it does all come back to an hourly rate. And the reason for that is majority of us quote with an hourly rate in mind. So if a customer said, listen, Andy, I want you to build my house, most builders, and they might say, well, what are you charging an hour? Now, most builders will say $80 an hour. Now, we all know that you're looking at making 10%, 20%, 50% profit at the end of the job, if you can. But the whole thing is you do need to understand that hourly rate to help you moving forward. So we have an hourly rate calculator that we've done with a lot of our guys as well, because what happens is most people set their hourly rate up is when the sun is shining, you know, there's rainbows in the sky, and there's also a unicorn flying through the air. And what I'm trying to explain here is the perfect time in your business where everything is just going right. Now, I want to ask you this: how often in business does everything just go right? You know, we all have challenges. So we need to make sure that we understand what hourly rate we need to charge, because let's face it, our staff have 4 weeks holiday a year. They have 2 weeks of public holiday a year, and hopefully they don't use their 2 weeks of sick pay a year. So all of a sudden you've lost 8 weeks of the whole year. So now you're sitting at around about 44 weeks. But then you have downtimes. You have times when work's flowing through the door, and you have time when work's not coming through the door. And that might equate to another 44 weeks a year that you don't have work. So that means you're only working for 40 weeks a year. Now start looking at your overheads and have a look at your costs, and then work out what your hourly rate is. It will surprise you, and you may even be a little bit unsure of what that is. But when you're charging an $80 an hour rate, unless you're making big profits at the end on other trades and other materials, you are starting to struggle. Yes, I am really diving into numbers today, and the reason why I'm doing that is because 95% of every business owner I talk to, and I talk to thousands every single year, they just don't know their numbers to the level that they need. So the whole idea is you also need to, as a business owner, you need to understand where your break-even costs are. And that might be what you are churning out each week, what you're churning out each day, what you're even churning out each month, to make sure you are on track to break even. Here in my business, for those of you that know, I own a plumbing business called Dr. Drip here in Sydney. But we've got it down to such a point that we know every single job. When the boys invoice a customer on the spot, it goes straight to our office, and on our job management system, it gives us a profit and loss. And I think everyone really needs to know when they're making money and when they're not. But it's down to a point that all our boys have KPIs. We know what our break even is. We know what they've got to hit, and everything above that is also a bonus. Now, I understand with building, it is a little bit different, but also with giving people KPIs and helping people potentially having rewards for working harder, it really sets a level up of your staff understanding how the business is going at any given time, and making sure you definitely know how the business is going at any given time. I get the odd person pushing back on me and saying, well, you know what? I don't want my staff to know what my break even is. I don't want them to know when I'm making money and when I'm not. And I do understand that, and I definitely don't share my P&Ls with my team. I don't do that, apart from the girl that deals with our accounts. But the thing is, if you don't know your break even, if you don't know your profitability week in, week out, then it's very hard to make decisions in your business as you start to move forward. And another thing that's very important for builders and carpenters and any trade business is learning how to forward forecast. Now, I know this can be a little bit tricky, but this is something that you can sit down with and talk to your accountant with. Now, I know some people here online listening today and in the future, you may be turning over 100 grand or 200 grand, or you could be turning over 10 million plus. Now, it's important to forward forecast, because especially if you're one of those bigger businesses, to make sure your cash flow is always on point, to make sure you always have money when you're moving forward, and to be in a position to make decisions. You know, another question I always get with members that join Lifestyle Trading is, when is the right time for my business? When is the right time for myself and the business to grow? When is the right time to buy more equipment? You know, excavators or trucks or whatever the gear is and tools you use in your business. But when is the right time to do that? When is the right time to put on staff? When is the right time to keep stepping up the business? When is the right time to be spending a lot of money on marketing to drive the business? When is the right time to make decisions in your business? And it always comes back to knowing your numbers and understanding your forward forecast. I've been in business for many years now, around about 23 years. And the challenge I've had in the past is I've gone off my gut instinct. And I know a lot of us think our gut instinct is pretty good, but you know what? I made some massive mistakes listening to my gut and not looking at the figures. So I'm not a fan of using your gut instinct these days. I'm all a fan that the numbers will tell you what you need to do, can you afford it, and is now the time to strike. Now, as entrepreneurs, and I think every business owner is an entrepreneur, when is the right time to take risk? When is the right time to take that business to a whole nother level? Well, the right time is really around the numbers. There is an element where I'm happy to take a gamble, but what is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario? And then you've got to take a bit of you've got to make that decision of, are you happy to take that loss or that worst case scenario if something goes wrong? I think that's really important. So guys, knowing your numbers, understanding exactly what's happening in your business, and forward forecasting is absolutely critical. If you're not doing this, I really do urge you to start looking at this. I know if you're a smaller business, you're going to think to me, oh, I just don't have the time. I'm too busy quoting. I'm too busy doing everything else. I understand that, but you really don't have a successful business until you understand these numbers. You personally don't have to understand how to do it, but you need someone that is laying the numbers there in front of you. It's really hard to improve a business when you don't know your numbers. It's really hard to step up because you think you're doing well, and thinking and a gut feeling just doesn't work. I'm going to change tactics just a little bit now, and you wouldn't believe it. Outside, I don't know if you can hear, I've got a tradie out there using a grinder. Wow, no, certainly not one of my guys. So if there is that little bit of background noise, I do apologize for that. So double down on your marketing. This is a really interesting question. When is the right time to market? And I believe that every business should be marketing and spending, 5 to 10%. We've got some of our members that are spending up to 20% of their turnover on marketing, and they're spending between 80 and 100 grand on Google AdWords a month. Really? Yes. But they're businesses that are doing around the 10 mil mark and beyond. But the thing is, what are you doing when it comes to marketing? How are you getting new leads in the door? Some of my building mates of mine, they can go from fathom to feast, can't they? And I don't know if you guys are like that. And one of my mates would always say, Andy, I see marketing is like a tree. You have a branch off the tree and you have one client. Now, on that branch, there might be another 5 or 6 branches, and I'm hoping that I can get a job of another one of those branches along the way. And if I do a great job for that customer, guess what? They're going to recommend me to these other branches, and that's what's going to help me and my business bring in the work. But what happens when you're at the end of that branch and you've got no leads, you've got nothing coming in? Well, this is where I see a lot of builders and carpenters go about it the wrong way. You're so busy working and you're just so used to work sort of falling at your feet in a way that you don't market anywhere near enough to have those constant leads of top quality customers. We do a thing that's an A, B, C, and D customer. A lot of people attract D's and C's customers that they're not really happy with, not high profit margin. And the reason why that happens is you don't spend enough on marketing to bring in the quality. I can tell you now that little bit of money you spend on marketing to bring in an A and B customers is so much more profitable without all the headaches than just sitting there taking any shitty job that comes along. So when is the time to market? Is now. How do we market our business? What should we be doing? Well, obviously these days there's online and there's offline. Now, in the old days, all we had was offline, so we did a lot of offline marketing. These days, there's a hell of a lot to do with online marketing, like AdWords, Facebook, Instagram. And I want to ask you guys, are you playing in this space? Because the AdWords space is really, really interesting. Being a maintenance plumbing company, we can cost up to $250 a click for someone to click on our ads when it comes under Plumber Sydney. Ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. So you need to be smart. You need to find someone that's going to do your AdWords that are not trying to play always in the big space, but they're trying to find the right words that's going to suit you, and having some style of niche or an avatar in your business. An avatar is something that your ideal customer, who is the person that is the perfect customer for you, and you need to go out and chase them very hard. This day and age, there's quite a few people getting work on Facebook as well as Instagram. I know a few of the young up-and-coming guys are like, we don't play on Facebook, we only play on Instagram. Well, that's fine, but is your avatar playing on Instagram, or are they playing on Facebook? Or is your avatar not on social media at all? In some rural areas, out of towns, not all of us here online will be in the major cities. So believe it or not, Yellow Pages still works. If you're out in the middle of nowhere in a local town, they're still using Yellow Pages. If you're in Sydney and the big areas, maybe not so much. So what is your avatar? Are you playing in what space? Are you playing on online marketing? Are you playing on offline marketing? And how are you getting a pipeline of jobs coming through the door? Marketing is all around consistency, making sure you do it time and time again. Not, I'm really busy today, so I'm not going to market. Holy shit, I'm quiet today. I need to market and I need work right now. Consistency is certainly the way to go. And really doubling down also on your repeat business. For myself personally, we run at around about 82% repeat business, which is absolutely huge. Now, I know a lot of builders, you're thinking to yourself, well, someone builds a house once, they may build a house twice, but there's not a lot of repeat business. But what I see quite often is a lot of builders will come and do a project for a customer, and when it gets to the end of the job, everything's run smoothly, and then all of a sudden the customer, for whatever reason, you have a bad taste in your mouth, the customer has a bad taste in their mouth, everything was running smooth to the very end, and then it ends in disaster, and they are never ever recommending you again. So you need to make sure you're really looking after your customers and that customer service. So what I want to dive into now is a bit about the quote for profit formula. There's a lot of things you need to do to make sure you are making the money out of every single quote. I'm not going to dive into all of this right now. I certainly don't have time, but I'm just going to touch on this. And this is the section there that it says authority. What makes you the best person for the job? What makes you the best builder, carpenter, electrician, plumber? Why is someone going to spend their hard-earned cash for you? Now, I've worked with quite a few builders over the years, and the big thing for them is they've been used to work falling at their feet and not necessarily driving hard for the top quality customers. So the thing is, have you won awards? Do you have like what we call a credibility pack, something that you can give the customer to show them all past jobs you've done, the quality of work you do, how you go about it, your insurances, but making sure that they understand you are the right person for the job. Some incredible photos, some testimonials from past customers. All of this kind of stuff is making you the authority. We've helped a lot of businesses with PR, and we've got them in magazines. We've helped them with winning awards. We've got them in the local newspapers. All these things make you the authority. And when a customer is going to be spending, let's just say 500,000, let's say $1 million or above, that's a lot of money to the average person, and they want to make sure they're spending it with the right person. So you really do need to set yourself up as the authority in your space. Hopefully you've gone down a bit of a niche of the style of work you do and making you the absolute superstar. Now, let's look at chasing up quotes. How do you guys do that? Are you good at chasing up quotes? Because the challenge I see that builders that I talk to, they say, I've spent a week on this quote, I've sent it through to the customer, now they want to change something, and they change something, and then you redo the quote, and then you give it back to them again, they change something again, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And by the end of it, you may have spent 40 hours, you may have spent 80 hours or more doing these quotes. And then when you give the quote to the customer, you're a bit over the whole process, and then you don't chase the quote up correctly. If you're not chasing your quotes and you're not going down this process, then you are wasting your time. What we do within Lifestyle Tradie is we have a quote flow system. Everything is systemized. We do it the same way every single time, and no one gets missed. Because let's face it, these days, customers are busy. Things are happening in their world, and you send them an email, they may not have received the email. It may have gone to their junk folder. By the time you talk to them, oh, sorry, I haven't even had a look at that. then you think to yourself, oh, they're not even ready. So you go a bit cold and you don't keep chasing. What's happening on behind the scenes is there's another builder that's coming in and they're doing what we do at Lifestyle Tradie with a quote flow system. And if you're quoting at 500,000 and they're quoting at 550, you know, there's a $50,000 difference. But if they're offering the service and they're doing everything to the customer's desire and what the customer wants, money isn't always the turning point of who they choose. The cheapest person doesn't always get the job, but the person that's persistent enough and make sure they chase those quotes every single time. So I want to ask you, do you have a quote flow system? How do you talk to your customers? Do you send them emails? Do you follow it up with a phone call? Do you do that a series of times? Do you send text messages? If you can send a text message, customers are more inclined to reply these days. They really are. If you're friends on Facebook, sending them a messenger message on Facebook is another really good way. Customers aren't going to annoy you when you're doing it directly to them. Most customers don't want to be completely rude. They understand you've gone through a big process in doing all these quotes. So it's absolutely essential that you guys are going down this path and following up your quotes every single time. This quote flow system has generated an extra 10 to 15% of quotes approved for the members that we've been dealing with. It is that critical. I want to ask you, what would 10 to 15% extra quotes being approved mean for you? It means a hell of a lot. So guys, that is getting very close to wrapping up for me, but I'm going to go into the job management system, and that's why we're here today with BUILDXAC. Now, the thing that I can honestly say is when I do talk to a lot of people that are tradies, the part of the problem with a lot is they're unorganized, they're time poor, they're wearing too many hats. They're expected to be the marketer, the chasing debt guy, the tradie out on the tools, the customer service person. You know, we're wearing so many hats and it's driving us nuts. And there's so many things going on in our head that we're trying to remember everything. And most business owners have a fairly good memory, don't we? But you just don't keep up. And as you get older, it gets harder. It certainly does. But the thing is, you need to have the right job management system. You need to have BUILDXACT. You need to have everything that you do in business has to be in this system. And this is the way you need to run your life. Because most tradies go down this path of it's all in their head. And when it's all in your head, if you get sick or something goes wrong, the business just does this big dive. You need all the information in one spot only, and you need to be using it to its true potential. I also get people that say, well, I do have a job management system and I'm still really busy. And I always dive down in this path and say, well, out of this job management system that you're using, what percentage do you think you're using it to its capability? Now, I definitely believe that most people are sitting around 40 or 50%. They're not even getting it to the true value of where they want to be. So listen, I'm going to pass you over to Julian now, and he's going to talk about his system. But if you don't have a system, make sure you grab BUILDXACT. If you do have a system, make sure you're using it to its true potential. This is the only way to set your business up the right way. And then at the back end of knowing your numbers, following your quotes, having the right job management system, and systemizing your business, when you get the foundations of your business right, that is where you can take your business to whatever level you want. Over to you, buddy.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, some great information there. Guys, if any of you weren't on the webinar about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, what Andy's talking about there is exactly spot on there with your marketing. You need to be sort of focusing on that. Like, just to give you an example, I've this has just happened yesterday for me. I've been thinking about getting our garage flooring done to epoxy, because we've now got our gym in the garage because gyms are closed in Melbourne, and I'm just sort of spending a lot more time in there, and it's just one of those things that's just doing my head in. And I found someone online that is offering to do the flooring at a really cheap price, but my response to it, I messaged him saying, hey, looks great. Have you got a business page that I can check, just so I can check reviews? Now that's a way a lot of people, you know, so I'm 32 now, so a lot of people that, you know, I've grown up with social media, that's a really, really important part. So knowing exactly who is on your page and what you need to show is really, really important, because I'm not going to go with him if he doesn't have a social media page, or if he doesn't have some form of business page where I can see his reviews and see his quality of work, because at the end of the day, he's got a cheaper price, but I don't want to hand over money for someone that's not going to do a good job. And then I've also just reached out to someone to do the evaporative cooling and the heating in the house as well. And that just came up from a sponsored ad on Facebook. I wasn't searching for it, so I'm convinced that listening to my phone, because I was talking to my wife about it yesterday and it suddenly popped up. But all of that stuff is really, really important. A lot of people don't really take the time, and it's, you know, Andy said that it's that very much kind of, you know, I get it all from word of mouth and it's fine. But it's going to come to a point, and I mentioned this in the webinar 2 weeks ago, in about 10 years time, you're going to be quoting for jobs for people who are about 15 right now. And that's scary for a lot of people. Like, I grew up, social media came in when I was, you know, sort of 17, 18, 19, it started to kick off. There's people that are going to be born with social media, that it was out ready to go. So you really have to just try and change the way you're doing things. And, you know, a lot of people that we get as clients, it's a lot of small builders. So, you know, we're talking sort of one-man band, husband, wife team, couple of guys, maybe up to sort of 10 employees. That's really kind of where we sort of see majority of our client base. You know, things have changed a lot in that sort of space. Technology has come a long, long way, and people are really starting to invest in it right now. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys again, and just so you can see my PowerPoint, I'll just do that now. Here we go. So hopefully you guys can all see that. Andy, is it all up there?
Yes, mate, it's all up there.
Awesome. Guys, so I'm kind of going to be coming off the back of what Andy was talking about, knowing your numbers. So knowing your numbers is really important to sort of know what your target is, where you're making money, where you're not making money. But it also is really useful to establish what that profit margin is going to be and who those jobs are that are going to fit that profit margin. So if you want to get high-end houses, you need to be looking for high-end houses. What's the profit margin that you're targeting for that? And where are you looking? You know, finding high-end renos, you're not going to find them everywhere. You have to look in specific areas and make sure you're doing the advertising for that to make sure that you can maintain that profit margin that you want from the very get-go. And as Andy said, say no to those tire kickers. I was doing some research yesterday, I've done it before, but there's tons and tons of places online that say when you're quoting, when you want a quote from a builder, get 3 quotes. Now, if you're spending 15 to roughly 25 hours, that's where we see most people spending on a quote, doing it manually, and you're doing that, and maybe you're only winning, you know, 15, 20, 25% of those. A lot of the time it's going to be because people just are shopping around. They might have a builder in mind that's come from a friend and they say, oh, look, that's the person I want to go with, but I just want to double check I'm not being ripped off. So I'm going to get a quote from 2 other builders. Those 2 other builders may never have any chance of winning that work if that price comes in roughly the same. They're just price matching you. So how are you currently managing that, and how are you currently managing that process? So we're going to come into how Buildxact can speed that quoting process up. So it's either you get that quoting process done a lot quicker so you can still punch out that many quotes, or you just say no in advance, that you're going to make people, you know, it might be paying for quotes, it might be getting more information off them, having more of a conversation rather than just submitting a quote at their wish. And once you've got those leads in, as Andy was touching on, it's how you convert those high quality leads and those target ones that you're looking at. So I'm going to take you through the customer portal in Buildxact, how you can do that, the benefits it makes, and again, how you're going to help, you know, increase your conversion percentage. So that's kind of the real thing there is, once you've established what your profit margin is going to be, don't just bend for any job, because if your profit margin is say 15% or 20% or 25%, whatever that is, and then you're getting a client that's trying to drive you down, you might be willing to do that a little bit, but don't just completely drop your pants on the price just because the customer wants that. Because the more you drop it, the more you're going to be doing jobs that you're not really targeting and that not really that you're wanting to do. And that's going to affect future jobs you have through word of mouth referrals, all that kind of stuff as well. So let's look at how Buildxact can help. Now I'm going to take you through Buildxact. I'm just going to touch on a few points here. So more accurate quotes is super, super important. It's all well and good knowing what your profit margin is and say, well, I want 15%, but my quote isn't that accurate. Well, that 15% isn't going to be accurate either. And that's going to affect your cash flow. It's going to affect your revenue, any costs. All those things are going to come into potential issues if your quote isn't accurate from the get-go. Now, how do you do that? You use a system like Buildxact where we can give you accurate quotes and you can calculate your margin very, very easily, so that when you come to a point when you're completing the job, you're going to be more accurate with what that target is going to be. Scheduling, so when you're using a system probably like Excel, which a lot of people do for their schedules, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's extremely manual. How are you currently notifying subbies of any changes? How are you currently keeping up to date, setting reminders for yourself? All these kind of things are really important, which we can help with from a scheduling point of view. And then probably the bit that we've got on the screen here is the cost tracking and the budgets and the profit side of things. So how are you going line by line on your spend? So labor on the concrete slab, labor on the framing, the material costs for a particular part of the build. Knowing exactly where you're going right or wrong with that and knowing how that compares to your budget is super, super important, so that you can see in real time how that affects your profit margin. Because what a lot of people do, and a lot of business do this all around the country, is they spend, and then go back, and you might be doing it through accountant, as Andy mentioned, and go, well, I'm going to see my accountant. And then the accountant tells you, well, I've seen you once a year or once every 6 months. You're screwed now because you haven't acted on those 6 months, and you're only seeing me at this point in time when you need that advice. Now, for anyone that's watched the videos before, I've mentioned a couple of times, I used to work at MYOB. I used to advise accountants and bookkeepers on how to change their model up to be more proactive in providing advice to their clients, because a lot of people do just sit there for 6 months or a year. And what happens is the client doesn't get real-time advice. They get advice in that previous 6 months. Okay, well, that can be make or break for a lot of people. So knowing that in real time, our system syncs into the accounting software, but knowing that in real time, you can make changes on the job, but more importantly as well, for future jobs, you can take the last 2 or 3 jobs that you've done, factor in any issues that came about, and then we circle back around more accurate estimates. Your estimate's more accurate because you're knowing where you're likely to go right or wrong at any point in time. So guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you through Buildxact just so you can see how that works. Now, for those of you that are using it, I mentioned before, there's a couple of new little features in the system I'm going to show you really around the margin side. So it's actually a really good time to have those features released. So this is the costing side of the software. Now, for those that have used it before, you'll notice that there might be a little change in yours. You might have had this change already, but you'll see the quote total there. So what this does is that it factors in how much markup that individual line item is going to add. Now, I haven't got any markup in this particular line here, but I have got a category of 15% markup, and I've also got markup on the total job overall here. So all of this is factoring in exactly into here, so I can see how much this is going to cost. So let's do this and we'll see how it works. We'll go into our takeoff tool, we'll go into the elevation, and we'll zoom right in, and we're just going to go and calculate this brick wall here. We'll just go point to point. Now, guys, I know I'm looking away from the camera at the moment. It's just my bigger screen's on this side here, so I can use this a bit easier for you guys to see. And we just take out the windows, and what you'll see in this top right-hand corner, we've got 32.31 square meters. This is reducing as we're taking these windows down. So nice and simple. So obviously it's a lot quicker than using a scale rule and a pencil, but because you're using a system, it's going to be much more accurate in calculating that. So this is actually worked out as $4,700 from a cost perspective, but with all the markups and everything we've added on in there, it's actually showing us $7,556. Super, super important so that you know exactly where each line item and what that's doing to the overall quote. And if you want, you can actually show this to the client. Most people don't generally, but if you want to, you can. But we can see here that it's nice and easy to break down. And this is really important later on when it comes into raising our purchase orders and ordering our materials. So from a bricks supply and install, which is the recipe that I created, it's going to tell me the exact number of bricks, the labor, the cost, the quantities, for the sand, cement, the ties. It's covered everything there for me. So from a speed and accuracy point of view, you're going to be much further ahead than what your competition is doing generally if they're using a manual system. And when you're done, you just mark these categories off as complete. So what this does, it helps us get more accurate quotes. And when it comes to sending your quote letter to a client, we talked about this from a lead conversion point of view earlier on. How do you provide a better lead conversion? Well, a professional quote goes a long way. If I'm spending, you know, for maybe it's a reno, maybe it's a new build, if I'm spending say 300-400 grand on a new house, and someone's giving me a quote they've just drawn up on Word that isn't great, I'm like, well, I'm about to spend 300 grand with you, and you've got a Word document that's not professionally done. And some people are doing them really professionally in Word, but they generally take a lot longer to do. So what BuildXact does, it allows you to print these quotes or email them. I'm just going to print it just so you can see it easily rather than waiting for the email to come through. So we've got a nice professional quote with a logo. It's got any pictures we've decided to add in there as well. And as we scroll down, we've got any quoted items. Now, most people don't add all this stuff in. I'm just showing you that you can. And there you've got the quote total at the bottom. So how does that look from a client portal perspective? I touched on that as well. So all of this stuff goes into your lead conversion. So you've spent all that time establishing who are the right clients, what profit margin do you want. You need to make sure that, you know, the people that you're quoting and you're spending the time to quote, you're going to try and do your best to win the work. So BuildXact has a customer portal. You can invite your clients into it. This is the client-facing side of it. So when they click on the project that you're quoting for them, because you might have a couple of projects, it might be a bathroom reno, kitchen reno, or whatever, you can share the actual quoting document directly into here. They can ask messages. It comes back into BuildXact as you track all that communication as well. So really, really important. Any documents you decided to upload, so I've got a slab and a frame picture. As we're going on the job, we can do that so the client can see. If you had any variations, they would show up in here. Same thing with any invoices, and the client can always see your scope of work. Now, you don't have to invite them in only when you win the job. This can be done during the quoting process. Now, if I've got someone that's got this, that's got a professional quote letter, they're sending me images and I can message them through here, or there's someone that's just said, yeah, I'll get back to you with a quote, and there's an email with an attachment on a PDF, probably already for me personally, I'm more geared towards someone that's got this sort of system in place, because I've got that little bit more of a trust. There's more professional system they're operating. So that's from my personal feedback on it, what I would prefer. Obviously, I think a lot of people will be the same. So let's dive in. We're running a little bit out of time, but let's dive into the job side of it. So I've got one that I've done already here, similar to the screen that I had up earlier on. But what this is allowing us to do is see at any point in time where our costs, where our money's going. So based on what we estimated, what was the actual spend on that? So you can see here for the bricks, I went 14% over budget because of incorrect pricing. Now I know I need to go back in and update my pricing in future so I don't make those same mistakes again. But if the labor went over, why did it go over? Do we do something wrong? You can pull a report. You can pull a report for say 2 or 3 of your last jobs, and you can compare to what went wrong and make sure that your estimates are more accurate in the future. So you're not going to be going through this over and over again, because a lot of people just look at this at the end of a job and roughly have an idea where things went right or wrong, but really not able to narrow in on it. And when you can't do that, you can't really make effective changes moving forward. So that profit margin, which you see at the very top right, that's a pretty decent profit margin, so I'm aware of that. But if you're not able to see that in real time, not able to make those changes when you're on a job and then for future jobs, your profit margin is always going to suffer. And everything you set out as a goal and that you think, well, at the end of the job, I'm going to have this, you're very unlikely to have that. So that's something I'd really recommend in sort of investing the time. And obviously BuildXact's great for this, that you can see. And it's just giving us a nice clear breakdown where we've gone over or under budget. So at any point you can see that. I mentioned earlier on, we do sync into the accounting software as well. So if you have an accountant or you have someone in the back office that's looking at that side of it, it syncs all that information in. So if you've got an accountant, they're providing you sort of the advisory services, which a lot of them are trying to do now. Having real-time access to data is super important. There's no use that old-fashioned kind of handing them a box of receipts or a box of bills a month, 2 months, 3 months later. You're never going to get the correct advice. That's always going to hurt your profit margin. So guys, that's a really quick run through some of the key things I want to talk about in BuildXact. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we're going to be going through some of the Q&A that anyone's asked, but I'll just quickly put up this last slide here, just so you can see our contact details. So you want to, if you have a trial of Buildxact already, or you haven't, there's a 14-day free trial. You can book a demo with one of our guys. They'll take you through the system one-on-one. We do have free training in Buildxact as well. So for anyone that does want to come on, there's webinars that are available every single week, and then you also get one-on-one training as well. And Andy, as I mentioned earlier on, has got a copy of their book, which I think he might be able to hold up for us there. There you go, if you can see it on the screen. That's free for anyone that attended the webinar. So make sure you get in touch. There'll be emails, everything that get popped out at the end. That, you know, if you want to get a copy of that, there'll be links and everything in there. So yeah, feel free. And if you want, you can take those details down, but I'll just stop sharing my screen and just see what Q&A we have. Normally we do get a few. So let's open the chat box. I think this one might be for you, Andy. I've got one saying, I'm only charging $70 per hour, but I know customers won't pay for it. What would your advice be?
Yeah, interesting question. I hear it all a lot of the time. You know, the thing is, I'm not here to tell anyone what their hourly rate should be. But what the problem is 90% of tradies out there are struggling in some way. And that is all because they're following the leader and they're not charging enough. Now, I know there's people undercutting the market, and I understand that at times, but you should never play in this space. You don't want to play in the space of the race to the bottom. And when you're trying to play with pricing and you're not charging enough, then this is a problem. So you need to set yourself up so you can charge more, and you have that value by being an authority in your space. And once you start doing that, like if I look at builders, some of the bigger builders out there, they're in that space because people know them and love them, and you need to look at that too. So don't let the fear of putting your prices up hold you back, as long as you're doing the right steps to make sure you keep these customers going, because there's no use being in business not making money. Now, I understand you could charge $40 an hour, but if you've got 50% profit margin, you're doing okay, right? So the hourly rate, especially when you're quoting, is just a tool to guide you. And then it's about how much profit margin do you actually want.
Got Danny here. I'm setting up a new plumbing business. Is there any new government incentives, handouts to trade small businesses?
Yeah, mate, good question. I think the incentives at the moment for new business, I don't sort of play in that space, so I'm not 100% sure. I know there's a lot of incentives out there for hiring new apprentices and things like that at the moment. Incentives for setting up your business, I don't necessarily play in that space, but we do in regards to what governments are handing out, but we do help a lot of businesses in startup. And the thing to remember is, why try and reinvent the wheel by yourself? Why don't you learn from someone that's been there and done that? And we've got a lot of people, and if you do go in and read our book, we've got a couple of guys in there that they started with Lifestyle Tradie before they even had a business. 18 months in, they were doing 1.5 million. 2.5 in, they're doing about 2.5, and now they're sitting on track to do about 4 million. That is not because they're a better plumber or a better electrician than anyone else. That is because they learned how to set their business up right. They know their numbers, and what they're doing is they're pumping all the profitability they're making into marketing and just driving the business.
Yeah, definitely. There's one here about pricing in Buildxact. Guys, if you put in the questions, just put in all panelists and all attendees as well, just so everyone else can see them as they're going through. But yeah, it's simple price upload. You just, from Excel, you can import it straight into the system. There's been some changes there to make it a lot easier and a lot cleaner as well, with some new features. So yeah, maybe we can take that one offline and reach out, and we can walk you through it. But there's some support documents online which you can have access to as well. But yeah, I imported one about 2 or 3 weeks ago now that had about 5,000 items in there. It took a few minutes to do. So it's a very, very quick process to use. How the zero, our cash flow. So yeah, so as I said, Buildxact syncs over your purchase orders, your bills and your invoices to your accounting software. So that's Xero, that's MYB Account Right Live, and QuickBooks. So it sends all that information over. This one might be for you, Andy. It's about the marketing side of things. So I'm spending a lot of money on marketing to bring in leads, but I don't feel like I'm getting a good return. What should I do?
What should you do? Well, the challenge that I see out there is people say, I need work and I need it now, and they're in sometimes a bit of a panic. So then they look at competitors or they look at mates down the road and they go, they're doing this, I'm going to do that. So they get a handful of mud, throw it at a wall, and hopefully some sticks, right? Don't do marketing like that. There's a lot of people promising that their marketing is the new strategies, the bee's knees. I don't listen to anyone out there. I have a separate phone number using a voice over IP phone system, which is an internet phone, and every single piece of my marketing goes through that number. So when it comes into our office, we know exactly where it's come from. That gets loaded into our system, and then we know exactly how many leads we're getting, how many jobs we're actually doing, and how much profit we're making, and then we build our marketing around that. A lot of people are throwing marketing, and when you say you feel like you're not getting a good return, I'm not a big fan of I feel. I would really want to know, and if you don't know, then stop spending big dollars or dollars on marketing when you don't know your return. It's really critical to make sure you know these numbers.
Yeah, I think, Andy, just to add to that, with the marketing side, it's knowing what you're actually going for. I think a lot of people focus as, I'm going to win more jobs. Okay, well, as I said, what type of jobs, and the advertising needs to reflect that. If you're doing high-end homes, it's a very different, or high-end renos is a very different form of marketing to sort of the cheaper end of that. So that's really important to make sure that you're targeting that correctly, not just spending to get a ton of leads and then just trying to change for each client that you get. Because if you've got a lot of sort of more affordable sort of housing that you're trying to build, and you're trying to get a $1 million house, that's going to be a bit harder to win those sort of people over. So yeah, that's really, really important. So Andy mentioned Danny asked for your email as well.
I won't give you my personal email out over info. If you want to contact, go to lifestyletradie.com.au. I say that again, lifestyletradie.com.au. And you can jump on there, and we've got some information. You can click on that link, and you can send us an email, mate, and that'll go to info@lifestyletradie.com.au. And then from there, our team can help. And if it needs be, I can certainly dive in and help, mate. I'm absolutely stoked, Danny, that you're looking at starting your own plumbing business. If you set it up the right way, buddy, that is definitely the way to go. And yeah, good luck with all of that. And if any questions, yeah, mate, don't hesitate to send through.
Got one here about variations. So yeah, Buildxact manages variations. You can hop in the system, and I won't start showing my screen again to go through it. But yeah, it's very simple, and it will give the ability for the client to see exactly what that is. So Andy mentioned earlier on about the ability for a client to go and, I want to change this on the quote, I want to change that, I want to change this, I want to change this. Same thing with the variations. They're constantly asking for different changes on the job, and have to go in and draw those up manually every single time, and then figure out your markup and all that kind of stuff on top of that. It's a bit of a pain. So Buildxact manages that whole process. So you can go in and make a quick change within a few minutes, and that variation is sent out to the client. And you can be sure that whatever change you make, it's also factored into your costs, so you're not leaving anything off or forgetting to invoice them at the end. I don't think we've got any more. I think that's about it at the moment that's come through. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. Anything you want to add at the end there, Andy?
No, I think the main thing is, in any small business, you need to understand your numbers. Sitting here and going through Buildxact, again, it's a great product. So if you're sitting on the fence and you're unsure what to do, then I'd recommend jumping on Buildxact. As you can see in the presentation there, it's a quality system, and make sure you get it. And everyone has to have a system. I was having a chat with a guy today, and he's trying to run it through Xero, and I'm just like, dude, you just way behind. And the thing is, technology is moving at a massive rate. So jumping on one of these systems is the only way to fly now, and just do it, really.
Yeah, just add that, Andy. I think, like, as I touched on before, people, if you're using Zero to quote for a new build, it's just, I'd hope not many people are doing that, to be honest. But if you are, that's something you really want to change already. And I touched on before, 15 to 25 hours is roughly where we see the average quote time for a single story new build. We get people down to about the 2-3 hour mark for that. Now, if that's me quoting at 2-3 hours or someone else quoting at, say, 15-25 hours, I can punch out a lot more quotes, spend a lot more time on my business, more time on marketing, all to win work, where you've got someone down the road spending 25 hours quoting on a job they're absolutely never going to win. If I still want to do that, I can, but it's only going to take me 2 hours. So I might decide to invest that time because it's a lot less than what someone else is doing.
And sometimes if you get someone else to do a takeoff for you, you're 100% making sure they've done it right and hasn't missed something. So sometimes instead of paying that money and doing that, if you can do it yourself in a couple of hours, you just feel a little bit more comfortable that you're the one that done it and you haven't missed anything. Yeah,
exactly. Cool. That's it from me. And I think you guys are you guys running a live event soon?
Yeah, we are. We're running a Lifestyle Tradie live. It's coming up. I'm not exactly sure of the date. Is it November the 19th? It is November the 19th. No, November the 19th. I don't know if that's going to be on the email going out as well. But if you'd like to find out more about Lifestyle Tradie and what we do, we're running a 3-hour presentation that's going to be virtual, running out of a studio. We've got an incredible lineup of speakers. Well, Ange and myself are there, so that's the thing. And we've also got Michael from Profit First. If anyone's heard of the book Profit First, he's dialing in from America as well. It's a great 3 hours. It's definitely something worth coming to listen to. So click on the link in the email, and we'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Well, guys, yeah, look, thanks for joining. We've done a few of these webinars now over this lockdown period. Unfortunately, Victoria, we are still in that sort of lockdown level, but the rest of the country, I think, is much more free than we are at this point in time. But we really appreciate you guys coming on board and listening to us again. And thanks to Andy for presenting and delivering some really good content there.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to chatting with everyone, maybe one day down the track.
Yeah. See you later, guys. Thanks for your time.